This feels really formal. We don't ever start this formal. Hi, welcome to Average Age Groupers.
I'm Holly.
I'm Laura.
I'm Maggie.
I'm Logan.
Logan's back. This is going to be 3 episodes in a row for Logan.
He's like a regular at this point.
New
He's been on it
host.
the most. Not sure he's happy.
You could be a
about that.
co-host now.
I don't know. I'll make my 3 appearances every once in a while.
Yeah.
When we talk him into Unbound and Steamboat, we'll get him back on. We're working on it. Okay,
It's a plan.
so before we jump into Logan's story, which is what we're here for today, just a quick little plug about why we exist. We exist to tell average age grouper stories. We're really wanting to share the perspective of the more normal human as opposed to the elite athlete, how we're balancing it with normal lives, injuries, other goals, social life, maybe.
Keeping ourselves alive.
Yeah. Not burning out, all the things. Anything you guys want to add or talk about before we jump into Logan's story?
I don't think so.
No, that was great.
Okay. All right, so we have Logan here, 3rd episode in a row. You heard him pre-Lake Placid. You heard his Lake Placid recap. But we want to get down to the why endurance sports, Logan. What made you choose long distance, anything, running, triathlon, all of that? A little bit of maybe your history in terms of what you did as a kid that led you into sport to begin with. All those things.
Well, I can start by going into how I got into Ironmans and endurance sports. I graduated college and decided I didn't want to play hockey anymore, which we can get into more later. But at that point, I had already been mountain biking for a little while, and I decided I wanted to get into road biking. And then I wanted to figure out the longest distance I could race my bike in one go. And that kind of naturally led me into Ironmans. So it wasn't ever I want to do triathlons. It was kind of I just want to ride my bike as far as I can. And I guess I have to swim and run along with that. And that is the extent of endurance sports I knew at the time. Now I am learning that is not the case and route I had to take, but I don't regret anything. So
Okay, so, I mean, you can start with, you played hockey from what age?
So I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and by the time I was 3.5, my parents were getting questioned why I wasn't skating yet. So at that point, I was put on skates and started playing hockey. And 2 years later, we moved to Dubuque, Iowa, and I told my parents I didn't want to play anymore, and they persuaded me into giving it one more year. And after that year, I kind of fell in love with it and never looked back. So after that, I played all the way through college and ended up being about 19 years of hockey. So
How do you
Wait.
know at 3.5 to put a kid on skates?
No, I was just going to say, this is like Minnesota. There's certain things in Minnesota that are issued at birth. Hockey skates and flannel shirts. So, like, when he was, like, made it to 3.5, like, that's actually, like, amazing. Because normally they're like, oh, you're
They're
out of the
walking?
womb, here's some skates. No, like, just born, you're skating next.
it was always fun in college. We'd go ice skating, just like open skate after the D1 or D3 team played a game. And me skating and walking on skates off the ice just was always second nature to me. And all my friends were just like wobbling on the ice, like barely able to let go of the boards.
Bambi.
Yes. But
Wow. I'm so perplexed at this 3.5-year-old thing.
It's
Anyway.
the same way they make great swimmers, right? They throw the kids in as at, like, infant age.
And
And,
just hope for the best? Do
yeah, I mean, kind of.
Okay.
Like, teach them how to roll
Mhm.
over and float, and then if they keep up with it, you end up with, like, people who become amazing swimmers through their life, unlike those of us whose parents were like,
Nah,
not
not a
interested
necessary
in swim
thing.
lessons, so, like, yeah.
They
And
can
then,
float. They'll be good.
yeah.
Okay, so out of college, you want to ride your bike as far as humanly possibly. And Ironman was the choice.
Yes, I will say I didn't look too in depth into the endurance world, and I think one of the first things I stumbled upon was Ironmans. I think there might have also been some sort of thing in my head in college because I did want to try triathlons at some point, and I think that might have merged with that long distance biking, so that's kind of where my brain naturally took me. But yeah, I just ended up here. And I didn't want to try any shorter distances first because I just wanted to throw myself into the deep end.
Let's go to 112. Okay. So, did you know how to swim?
I did not. Growing up, I did do a little bit of swimming lessons, but I failed one year. And I think I threw a fit and told my parents I never wanted to swim again. So that was the end of swim lessons. And other than that, my best friends had a pool, but it was more of a go horse around in the pool rather than actually swim. So I had to completely teach myself how to swim laps when I started this journey.
Did you teach yourself or did you get lessons?
I taught myself for the first year with just some basic guidance from my coaches. And then the second year, I got swim lessons, and that was when I really wanted to get better at swimming, and I did. So the first year around, I was more so just worried about being able to stay afloat the whole time.
So, was all this when you were in Madison still?
Yes, when I lived in Madison and pretty much started this endurance sport within the same year, and then did it for 2.5 years before moving.
So, what? Okay. So, did you race a half your first year of doing triathlons?
I did the Milkman 70.3, which was the hottest day I think imaginable. And the swim wasn't too bad. The bike was fine. And then I started running, and they made you run through a parking lot for 3 miles. And I think that is when my spirit started to die. And then I didn't even know Maggie that much, but we just like trained together a little bit. And like I saw her with her family, and I was like, oh my God, it's the first person I know. And I like almost started crying, and I was like, I just got to keep running.
This is so funny. Yeah, I didn't know you very well at that point, but I was doing Milkman as a relay with my parents. So my mom swam, I biked, and my dad ran. And it was it was funny because you both really had a hard time with the run. So my dad finished and he was like beet red and so sweaty and just like clearly very uncomfortable. And you were your classic, like very pale, very concerning looking. Polar opposites.
I also like how you're like, you were your classic pale. Because Logan likes to finish races not looking great. He'll talk about it. Don't worry. Well, Milkman is also the race we referenced with Claire of like, none of us
It's
would
the
ever
worst.
do because you run around a parking lot around cones and there's no ice. So, no, thank you. Okay, Milkman, your first year.
And then after Milkman, I did Ironman Wisconsin, and I think this was 2024, 23.
23.
I don't
23.
23. Yes. And that was my first year doing everything, and that is when I met all of these lovely people.
He's so polite. I don't know how lovely we are, but yeah, 2023 was a big year. That was when we met you and like kind of adopted you into whatever this chaos is today.
Whatever this little family is.
Which was great though. Like, right, we were all on the same team at the time, which is ultimately how we met you. You were able to go a similar pace to Aaron, so gave you and him kind of a training partner for the couple of seasons that you were still in Madison, so all of that was good.
So, was the first Ironman the year of all of your things in your back pocket?
Yes. Yep.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. That was before I really comprehended the whole you actually need to really dial in what you're eating and how you're consuming. Numerous people had told me and tried to keep me on a plan and on track. And I think, one, I'm a little stubborn when it comes to eating, on workouts, and two, it was also my first time doing it, so I didn't know how much I actually believe people. But knowing myself, looking back, I probably wouldn't have done anything different, but I should have. So, but yeah, I got off the swim and onto the bike, and I think I kept to my nutrition plan on the bike. I don't remember what it quite was that year. It has gone up since then, but then I got onto the run, and I think I ate a handful of gels and gummies. And then by the time I got to like mile 10, I stopped eating food completely. And I was just drinking water and electrolytes at aid stations. And that is why I ended up with over 2,000 calories in my back pocket crossing the finish line.
And being
And being pale white,
extra pale.
bloodshot eye.
He
One
looks
of the
like a
things,
vamp.
yes, one of the things I remember from that, because you finished after Aaron, right? Yeah. You finished after Aaron, and we took him to, there used to be, it doesn't exist anymore in Madison, but there used to be a restaurant called Deluxe that's like very close to where the finish line is. And we took him there to get like food in him and electrolytes. And at the table, I just remember like dumping a packet of electrolytes into a glass at the table and like, because he's cramping.
But he
sitting at the
literally is
table.
cramping at the table. He's
Yeah.
like, God. And we're like, oh my. Just pour the salt shaker down your throat at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was that. And then once the food came out, I don't typically like eating French fries, but Aaron was sitting there staring at me and like not scolding me, but almost scolding me to eat the French fries. So yeah, between Holly making me drink the electrolytes and Aaron getting me to eat all my food and the fries,
He
I
came
was
back
doing
to
a
a
lot
normal
better.
color.
But yeah, I think the biggest memory I carry from Ironman Wisconsin that first year wasn't anything particular about the course or the racing itself. Like Holly said, Aaron finished like I don't know how far ahead of me he finished, but he was still in the chute or like on the backside of the chute when I got through. And I remember getting through and Aaron being there and being like the first person to greet me, and we got pictured together, and it was probably the most special moments I've had during this journey. So
They're best friends. I think Aaron
They're
was like
best friends.
overjoyed to be like, I'm going to hang out with my friend.
Yes. This is the part that sucks about you living halfway across the country. Because, yeah, there's like a very special friendship there. So, that's another reason why you're going to have to like suck it up and get a gravel bike so that you can do Steamboat and Unbound with Aaron. Because, like, that's a whole thing. We also have this whole plan. It's for another episode about how you, Aaron, and Maggie are all going to do Unbound together one year so that Maggie can have a redemption for her Unbound with people who can actually stay with her. Instead of my
And we can
slow
just
ass,
be like
but
happy,
you know,
goofy, like
yeah,
having a
like
good time.
you guys can laugh
Mhm.
at Aaron like picking up the turtles and like whatever. Yeah, yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
Be great.
It'll happen.
So next year we're gonna make these guys go down and volunteer so they can get an
They can get
entry
into Unbound.
in 2028.
Perfect.
Okay, so while I'm crying about Logan and Aaron's friendship over here, it's fine. It's fine. We're all fine. You then continued on the journey into 2024, and you did some run races though. You ran a marathon with Dave that fall, right, in 2023?
This was like post Ironman. We did the half in November, and Aaron was running with Dave because Aaron would be like marathon fit. And Logan just kept showing up for the long runs because why not? That's just what Logan does. And then it was like, Logan, why don't you just run the marathon with them?
yeah, I think I got up to Dave was like doing a 16-mile run, and I was only going to do an hour with them. And then I stuck with them until the turnaround. And since I was only going to be out for an hour, I didn't have any water or nutrition with me.
Weird.
So then turning around and coming back, instead of really helping Dave out, I think they were both trying to help me get back to the parking lot. And then at that point, they told me I had to run with them. So I ran a marathon with Dave and Aaron that fall, a handful of months after Wisconsin.
So what did you do in 24 then?
So not long after we finished Ironman Wisconsin, I was hooked and decided I wanted to do another Ironman the next year. But I wanted to do a race with Aaron, and I also really enjoyed the Ironman Wisconsin course. So I signed up for Ironman Wisconsin, and then we also signed up for Ironman California, which was 6 weeks after Ironman Wisconsin. So those were my two big races for the year. And then prior to that, I think that was the year we did
We did Musselman.
70.3 Musselman, and I also ran a half marathon early in the spring to kind of have that full build all the way through the year.
Why did you guys do Wisconsin and California? What made them do this?
I think I was supposed to do 70.3 Wisconsin, but I kind of wanted redemption on the course, and I really enjoyed it. And I also kind of like pushing the limits and seeing what my body can handle. And I guess naturally in my head, I was like, oh, well, doing one Ironman in a year is a limit that I was able to do. Like, why not test it and see if I could do two? And
Two
at that point, I
very
was,
close together.
yes.
So we should talk about Musselman though, because something very important happened at Musselman that also like led into like how the rest of the season kind of went in 2024.
What happened, Logan?
And 70 and Musselman, I think I podiumed fourth in my age group, and then I got a slot to 70.3 Worlds in Spain for 2025.
No big deal.
So Aaron
Casual.
did not get a slot there, but obviously wanted to go. So his goal then was to have an insanely fast race at Wisconsin 70.3 so that he could have his slot to Spain.
Okay. I forgot he did the half in
Yeah,
Wisconsin.
he did the half. That was in his build to California, but the goal of doing that was to qualify for Spain. And the other reason he did not do Ironman Wisconsin in 2024 was that Laura and I were doing it in 2024. And he and I have this deal of that we won't do full distance Ironmans at the same time or the same race because, shit happens and what if somebody gets hurt or whatever. Somebody has
Someone
to
has
be
to cut the grass.
somebody has to be the emergency contact and somebody has to like keep the house functioning while the other one's training for an Ironman.
Okay, I forgot like how that. I'm like, why was that the plan? Okay, so we all race Musselman. Logan qualifies for Spain. Wisconsin becomes Aaron's goal to qualify. You race Wisconsin. How did that go?
Wisconsin in 2024 was my, I think, best Ironman. It wasn't a PR because I PR'd technically in California afterwards, but it was a flatter course and with a river swim. So when I just looking at Wisconsin itself, I think that was my best, well put together race. I had a decent swim for what I am capable of doing. I actually stayed ahead of schedule, and then I absolutely blew my goal on the bike out of the water, and I had enough calories intaked on the bike to fuel me going into the run. And then I had a pretty decent marathon time. The one hiccup that happened during this race is when I was taking my wetsuit off out of the swim, it ripped my watch apart and off my wrist and broke it. So I had my bike computer on the bike ride, so I was able to maintain hour and whatever there on the run. It was a very much, I am running whatever feels comfortable, but also trying to link up with other runners and asking them what pace they're running so I can try to stick on their feet.
I don't think I knew that.
I don't think I knew that either.
It's like, I don't think any of us knew that.
And I remember passing my coach at the time, and I was like, I don't know what I'm running. Like, I don't have a watch. Like, I'm just going. But on the second loop, because that distance, I think it breaks everybody at some point, and it started getting really hard with about 8 miles to go. But at that point, I knew I was well above where I wanted to be at the time, so I just kind of dug in and kept pushing towards the finish line, and I think I took a little over an hour off of the pace I put down the year prior at Ironman Wisconsin. So overall, it was a really great race.
How much nutrition did you take in 2024 comparatively to 2023?
I pray more than the 2,000 calories he had in his backpack.
I think at that point I was up to 400 calories an hour on the bike, and then I was taking a gel about every 20 minutes. So I think that comes out to like 360 calories a hour on the run, which is still kind of light from what my body needs, but it was still a point where I didn't know how much I needed. So it's a ever growing thing to dial in. So, but it was a lot better than the previous year.
Let that be a lesson to all of our listeners about eating while doing endurance sports.
I mean, I feel like we've talked about this. We, at some point, will have a whole discussion on nutrition, but it takes a while to figure it out, too. Like, unfortunately, you have to do these races feeling somewhat possibly terrible until you figure it out. Case in point. All right, and then a short 6 weeks later, we go to California so that the boys can race a downriver swim.
I think that training block before we get to the race, the 6 weeks between Wisconsin and California, were probably the worst 6 weeks of training I have ever gone through. It was pretty much like a taper. It was like a week and a half of really light, almost doing nothing, and then kind of just base mileage on swimming, running, biking, whatever. I do remember joining Aaron on like an 80-mile ride, probably 4 weeks. It was probably 5 weeks. It was probably his taper week going into California, and it felt amazingly difficult. I think I blew up about 40 miles into that ride, and Aaron and he kind of heighted me back in from that ride, and that was kind of foreshadowing, I think, going into California, which I was actually feeling good when we got to the airport and landing in California leading up to the race. The body was actually in a really good spot. It was my first time swimming in a river, and that was really fun. It was,
And like current assisted.
yes, very much so. I wasn't expecting the water to be as cold as it was. That was a real big shock, but I really enjoyed that swim. I think that was the most fun I had swimming in a triathlon race. So, but yeah, getting out of the water and onto the bike ride, I felt really good. California, if you don't know, it's like 25-ish miles out, back, turn around, go out and back again. Earlier in the morning when we were going out, we had a nice day. There was minimal wind on the way out, and then turning around, you didn't notice it, but the wind started picking up, so you had a decent tailwind coming in. And then turning around to go out for your second loop was straight headwind the whole way with nothing to stop the wind. And it's a really flat course, which is not my strong suit when it comes to cycling. So all the people I had passed in the first loop just started blowing by me. And I just got to watch them go one after another and just looking at me, and they're all like, "It's all right, you keep going, like you're doing great." And then I was like, just in my head, I was like, I just need to make it to the turnaround. Like, it's gonna be fine on the way back in. And I got to the turnaround and realized I had nothing left in my legs to carry me the last 25, 30 miles back to transition. So I was very defeated getting off the bike, and I started running, and I think I made it maybe a quarter of the mile and absolutely didn't want to do the rest of the run. So I finished the little out and back because I knew Holly and Laura were waiting for us to check in and just cheer us on. And I don't think I've ever been in that bad of a mood during a race.
I don't think you said a single thing to us.
I think I kind of just looked at them.
He
with, like,
looked at
nothing
us
in there.
and then he ran by and I looked at Holly and I was like, oh, this isn't good. Like, I'm concerned.
I did keep running for a little bit, and I think about by mile 3, my legs kind of got back under me for a bit, and I think I took a couple gels in that period, so I think that helped. And then I made it to the first little out and back section, and I was feeling really good. and I was starting to do the math on how fast is Aaron running, how fast am I running, at like what mile do I think I can link up with him and kind of carry out the rest of this. And then I remember running by Laura and Holly again, and I was like, I'm back, like I'm feeling so good. And I think after I saw them, that lasted about maybe another mile, and everything fell apart. And then at that point, my feet were hurting. I think I noticed that there was blisters and it was hot, so I was dumping water on my feet and so my shoes were soaked, and I just like couldn't keep running for more than like 5 minutes at a time. And I think that was also the point where I stopped eating again. So it was another marathon where I underfueled in the back half and really struggled to the finish line. But with about 2 miles to go, there was about someone else similar in age running pretty strong, and he passed me with like 2 miles to go. And at that point, I was like, all right, we'll just use that as a little carrot to chase. And that helped me get to the finish line faster than I would have, and actually feel good about the finishing shoot on that race. So, but
Yeah, you don't run in socks, correct?
I do not run in
Yeah.
socks.
I mean, I remember taking his shoes off, so that was delightful. But you
Have
finished
you ever
it.
gotten blisters before, or was this a new thing?
I might have gotten like small blisters here and there that popped while I was running, but it never like impacted what I was doing. I think this was the first point where I like actually noticed like
Your feet were bloody.
this hurts. Like I can't step on these.
Oh no.
But California's got the best post-race food. So,
That was great. They have so many food trucks lined up down this like street. The first truck Aaron and I saw was a burrito truck. And he looked at me, he goes, "Oh, do you want to keep looking?" And at that point, burrito sounded good. And I didn't want to walk any further than I had to. So I was like, nope, I think this is good.
and then we had to walk very far away to the car.
Because you guys walked to the car and got in, and Aaron and I were supposed to take a shuttle back to the parking lot.
Mhm.
And we missed the shuttle / didn't know where the shuttle was supposed to be picking us up. And then we just decided to walk the rest of the way. And I think we hobbled the slowest walk ever to get back to you guys.
Did you? I
And
don't
you
even
were
think you
barefoot
put your.
at this point.
Yes,
Correct.
100%.
Perfect. Your poor feet. That must have taken
Well-
quite some time to recover.
The walking back barefoot would have been fine, except for they had to come through downtown Sacramento, cross the bridge, go through this parking lot, and it's a parking lot for a baseball
It's
stadium.
gravel.
Well, it's gravel, but where it's not gravel, it's like shitty, like not nice pavement, right? And you can tell people tailgate in there. There's like I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe you walked barefoot across this particular parking lot. Like, ugh. Like
With,
so
like,
many
your
opportunity
bloody,
for like,
blistered feet.
yeah, like,
But also, they just like both showed up and they're like, "Hi," and we're like,
we're like trying to load their bikes in the minivan, and they're like, and like take bottles off and like rearrange things. Yeah.
I think someone laid down in the back at one point before we loaded things. Did you lay down in the back of the minivan?
Well, you and I did.
Oh,
So long.
it all runs together.
We then hung out in California for a while, which was a fun trip. Did a bunch of California things. But then you came back and moved to Colorado.
Yes, I moved to Denver in this January of 2025, so last year. So I've been here almost, a year and a half now, so.
And then in 2025, you only raced Worlds, right? You didn't do another triathlon besides Marbella.
So
Right?
I started out the year and I was training for a half marathon. And while racing that half marathon, I injured my knee. So I had knee surgery late spring, early summer of 2025. And then knowing that, I decided to race 70.3 Boise
Well, that's right. I forgot about Boise.
to kind of prove to myself that I could still do this all after not being able to do much of anything for a while, which ended up being kind of a good blessing. I had a really fun trip out there with my dad, and then we kind of just got to road trip, hang out, race. I had a pretty decent race for what I was able to put hours into training beforehand. Because I think it was from when I got let out of surgery to that race, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 months post surgery before I went to the starting line. So it was all up in the air of what was going to happen that day. And I PR'd my 70.3 my bike leg, and had a pretty strong day overall. So it was feeling really good for the rest of the year. Bad thing about that is in my head, I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I don't really need to train that much. And besides that, I was trying to enjoy life a little bit outside of training and just focusing on Ironman Worlds. So I didn't get much volume, and I wasn't quite ready for Ironman Worlds when we got there. And this was, I think, the last race I had that year. So and then if we want to get into the race, the day before Maggie was racing, and there was so much energy, and I got really excited again about everything. I was like, oh, this is gonna be such a good day. And then she finished, and then it all kind of hit that, oh, I have to do this tomorrow. Like,
So can we talk about, though, your bike
oh,
and your
yes.
luggage? Minor thing.
Right.
So luckily my bike made it to Spain, but all of my shifting batteries and computers and everything was in my other bag that was checked. So that didn't show up. So we, Maggie, Aaron, and Paul all did a bike ride up a mountain together as our little shakeout ride. And I didn't have the capability to shift the whole ride, so I borrowed Maggie's battery and set my gear into a one that I thought I could handle the whole ride, which I was able to do for the climb. And then we got to the top where we were supposed to wait for everybody, and Aaron and I didn't really know what was going on. We didn't really get the whole game plan, so like we usually do, we kind of make bad decisions.
That is a full lie. They knew the game plan and they made a bad decision.
Right.
They
Went on
proceeded
this
to bomb down a mountain.
highway with all of these like semi-trucks.
Semi-trucks.
It was crazy.
They knew the plan. They are two boys that were like, let's go down the mountain.
And then Holly and Laura and I were just like, where are they? What are they doing?
And going down the mountain stuck in a single gear was already a questionable decision because I couldn't pedal to keep up the speed with anybody around me. So I was just kind of coasting down this whole mountain, and then I think Holly and Aaron called each other, and we were told to turn around.
Where are you? Like, what are you doing?
So we turned around, and then I had to bike up this very long, very steady mountain in a single gear. And at that point, the gear was not the correct gear for that climb. So I really started struggling to the top of that one. Then after that, we all regrouped at the top where we were supposed to meet. So
Yes, we did all regroup at the top where we were supposed to meet, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes earlier. It was fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
No one died.
No one died. Okay, so Maggie raced, and then you realized, oh, I have to do the same thing.
yes, and then I think Aaron and I were making dinner for ourselves, and I think I ate.
The luggage showed up,
Oh,
people.
the luggage did show up eventually. We got all of our stuff, so the batteries and the computer. I think all my run stuff was in that suitcase too, so it was going to be a really questionable day if it didn't show up. So, but luckily it did, and everything got into transition as expected. So, but yeah, the night before, Aaron was making dinner for us, and I think I ate about half of the plate of food that he gave me because I was very anxious and wasn't able to stomach things. And then we all kind of just hung out. Aaron and I were relaxing, getting ready for bed, and I think the girls went out to go celebrate Maggie's ride and just have a good time. And then at that point, I was still sitting on the couch because I didn't want to go lay down yet because I knew I wasn't going to be able to sleep. And then they all showed up, and they were very concerned I was still awake.
We literally were like, we got dinner, we had wine, there was limoncello involved. We had very different vibes. And then, yeah, we got back and we were like, why are you awake? Go to bed.
Yes. So then after talking for a little while with everybody went to bed. So I went back to try to go to sleep. And I wasn't able to fall asleep until I think 3 a.m. is when I finally kind of dozed off. And then we woke up, I want to say, an hour and a half or 2 hours later to get ready for the day. And then walking to the swim start, we got there early and we watched the pros go. And at this point, my anxiousness was through the roof, and I didn't eat any breakfast, and I was nibbling on a little honey stinger waffle, which I think I nibbled through a quarter of it in like the hour that we were sitting there. And that was all I had, probably the 12 hours leading up to the beginning of the race. And then the swim was a lot more stressful. I guess I wasn't really expecting that because I usually start next to Aaron because he swims faster than me, but it's not so drastically faster that it's unreasonable for us to start pretty similarly. But yeah, I jumped in the water, swam about 200 meters, and then had a full-on panic attack as all the guys who were faster at swimming than me were just swarming around me in the mass group start for our age group. And then at that point, I was like, okay, I settled my heart rate a little bit, and I was like, I'm just going to take this slow and go on the outside and just make it to the end. I think I was telling Laura and Holly and everybody this weekend, I was like, yeah, I was swimming so far on the outside, the kayaks kept coming over to me and guiding me back into the herd of people. But yeah, I got out of the water and then onto the bike ride and was feeling good about the bike. So I kind of started out pretty hard. And then I made it to the top of the first climb. I could see the crest of it. And I don't know if I like stopped paying attention for a second or what I was doing. I think I might have been grabbing a water bottle. But then I hit a rut and then my bike tipped into the guardrail and I broke a bottle and lost a bottle of nutrition. So I had one bottle of nutrition left. And then I went up and over the climb and started descending. And then I just kept grabbing their nutrition bottles or their electrolyte bottles that they were giving us. So I finished that whole ride without taking in any more carbs and just electrolytes and water. And the climb back up before the final descent was pretty long and strenuous. And then I got to the top and I decided to full send the final descent, which was fun because I got to blow by a bunch of people who were a little bit more cautious of that descent than I was. I was in my aero bars, fully pedaling, going down this kind of not quite switchbacks, but very twisty turny descent into the city. Got the bike to transition.
Did you ever look at what your max speed was of that ride?
I did not.
Do you know?
It might have been quite high.
If you full sent that. Yeah, because that was a crazy descent.
I think there was a couple spots where I had to grab the brakes, but that was because I was passing people in the corners, and I thought that was maybe a little questionable based on whatever everything else was going. But I made it to transition, and at this point I figured the whole race was kind of up in the air, like not going to do good, like this run's going to be awful. So I took my time. I actually sat down in transition, drank some water, ate a gel, tried to prepare myself, and then got out. And I want to say the first corner, everybody was waiting for me, and I tried doing a
What is it called?
I don't know the actual name of it.
We were talking about this the other day. None of us can remember the name of it.
I tried doing like a turn where you twist your body around to keep momentum, but it was painted concrete with water.
It was like right after an aid station, so like everyone's dripping in water.
So I like face planted in front of everybody.
And then just
and I got up and sprinted
past us, and we're like, okay, bye.
And then the first like 4 miles of that race was very crowded with people, and I didn't want to stop next to anybody. So I just kept running until it got to a quiet spot. And then I just walked for about 15 minutes to recollect myself. And then I think, did Aaron pass me on the first loop or the second time around? It had to be the first, right?
I don't
I don't
know.
remember.
But I think that was the point where we were right before we were planning. I think it was the second loop. I made it around. And then
Wasn't
I
it
knew where
on
you
that
guys were waiting
hill?
for
There was
us.
like the overpass, and then wasn't it there?
Yes. Yep. So I think we were almost done. It was like five, or not almost. There was still 4 miles, 5 miles left. Aaron caught up to me and we were talking, and I was not in a really great headspace. And I wasn't eating gels because I already didn't eat nutrition on the bike. So why would I eat nutrition while I was running? Great decision again. But yeah, Aaron was talking to me and I didn't want him to wait. So I told him to keep running. And then I saw a hill coming up and I knew they were going to be at the bottom of it. So I sprinted past Aaron and told him to hang,
Oh, I remember this.
Yes.
which he made the smart decision and did not keep up with me. So I ran past him down the hill, saw these guys, and I was feeling good at that point because I think when I don't know, I feel like when I pick up speed, when I'm not feeling great everywhere, you get this like false sense of hope that everything's going good. So I was like, I'm just going to try to carry this as long as I can go. And I think I made another half mile and shut down again. And then the last probably 3.5 miles of that was very much walking with a little bit of shuffling involved. But I did make it to the finish line, and I guess I already knew about the nutrition issue, but I learned again. Try to eat whatever you can once your plan goes to the wind. Just try to make something up better than electrolytes and zero carbs. So
Did
I
you
had a
grab any
coach.
gels or anything from the aid stations on the bike? You just did the electrolytes.
no, it was just electrolytes.
I had a coach once tell me she was like, look, if you're feeling bad, eat anything. Like anything.
Try anything.
Try anything because the chances it will make you feel better are good versus if you do nothing. And so I have always just carried that with me of like, well, I've never tried this before, but I feel like shit, so I guess I'm trying it today.
I mean, you can't get worse than feeling like shit. You
Yeah.
still feel like shit.
Right.
so.
Like, what's the word? Okay, now my stomach hurts more than it did before. Like, okay. So you finished Worlds. We hung out in Spain for a little while. But this year, here in Boulder, Denver area, like you joined a cycling team. So let's talk a little bit about like the cycling team experience and what you've learned through that process and all that stuff.
Yeah, so the first year I was out here, I didn't really meet anybody in the triathlon community or cycling community. So I looked back to when I was in Madison, I was like, oh, I met all my friends because I joined a team. And then growing up in sports, I always had a team, so I always had friends. So I was like, I should join a cycling team because I think I'm becoming skeptical about this triathlon lifestyle. And I really enjoy biking, and I'm in Colorado, so I want to get more into biking. I joined this team, and it was really fun. The beginning of the year, they put together like mock races where we would have like 16 guys show up to a Saturday morning ride, and they'd split us into like 3 or 4 teams, and we would do a little, gosh, I can't think of the name of it. Anyways, we do a little warm-up ride, and then we would come back and do a sprint, like a sprint finish race, and then a hill climb race, and then we broke apart into single riders and did like a multi-loop race with a couple climbs. And that really got me introduced into the competitive racing environment, and I think that is something that really lit something in my brain. I really enjoy the tactics that come along and the strategy, the planning, and not knowing like what's going on. Like someone might attack and you have to chase that down or let them go and work together with your team and try to catch them later on in the race. So I think that was all fun. It's also if something goes wrong next to you, it's happening fast, so you have to make split second decisions, which also really intrigues me. So that was my introduction to racing. And then we did a big cycling camp in April, I want to say, in Western Colorado, where we biked like 240 miles over 4 days. And that was kind of similar to just like big long training rides that I've done with Aaron and groups of people before, but also fun because they got to teach me a little bit more about descending and how to descend and how to deal with certain situations in the wind, which was also really good to have, and then also just really good mentally for me because I was able to keep up with everybody for the whole 4 day adventure. And then we did some little sprints mixed into our ride on the final day, and I shocked myself with how much I can actually punch in a sprint and how much power I can carry for a distance. I don't think I could win in a group sprint, but if you put me in a breakaway, I feel good about my odds beating the people next to me to a line. So that was kind of another thing where it was like refreshing, like, oh, this is something like I enjoy doing and I think I could be pretty decent at it. So yeah, and then after that I did knowing I had Ironman Lake Placid in the fall, summer, I didn't really want to get into much crit racing or road racing or gravel at the spring we have here, just because I was worried about crashing and hurting myself and missing a race. So it's been quite calm summer. I did do a 7 week time trial series, which was like a 9.2 mile course that we did the same course every week. And I started at 6 o'clock every week, so it was very repetitive. But I learned a lot about my position on my time trial bike, the little things I could do differently in a headwind versus in a crosswind and a tailwind. And since it was the same course each week, if we had similar weeks with similar weather, I was able to adjust little things and see if it was better or worse than the last time. And I think that, and then building the training block to just focus on those races was a really good measuring stick to help me get my bike fitness to where it is. I think my FTP in those 6 weeks went up 25% based on what I started at.
That's a lot.
Dude.
If you
25% is wild.
Yes, I was like, if you are not familiar with like FTP and all of that in biking, like that is an incredible jump.
But yeah, so that was and then I think I finished.
Didn't you podium for something with one of these things? Pretty sure you did.
Yes, that was coming up later.
Okay.
But yes, I forgot about that race. So I appreciate you reminding me. Yeah, so the time trial series, I came in second each week, and the guy ahead of me beat me by a ridiculous amount of time that I was never going to catch. So I felt good where I was at, and I was improving my time and power each week. So overall, it felt good. And then I did come in first 1 week when he didn't show up, so that was a plus.
Nice.
But yeah, and then so after that, I think my marathon came. I signed up for one road race because I thought it'd be fun. There was a lot more gravel than I was expecting, and I had talked to my coach beforehand, and he warned me that it was dangerous. And I made it. I started with one teammate in my category, and there was like a million, because we were racing in Boulder, and there was like a million 18U Boulder junior cycling kids. So we decided we should get ahead of everyone because we didn't know everyone's cycling abilities. So I got out early, got on the front of the peloton, and was driving everybody into the gravel. And then we got through some of the first corners, and I was holding a steady pace. And then my teammate jumped from behind me to lead, and I didn't want to let anyone else get in his wheel, so I tried sliding over, but then hit a soft patch and slid out, but I was able to catch myself. But by the time I got back on my bike and was cycling again, I was 30 seconds back with a group of like 4 guys who purposely dropped off the back of the race at the start to not be with everybody, so I don't think they were pushing very hard. We got up and over the really steep climb, and I slotted in second wheel behind someone who was pushing pretty hard, and then he decided, no, I'm done, and he kind of just sat up. but we're on the only clean line in the gravel, and I underestimated how choppy the gravel was to my right, so I went to go past him and hit a really deep pocket, which twisted my front wheel and threw me off over the bars, and I tore up the whole right side of my body. And this was halfway through a 7-lap race, so I got up and cautiously pedaled into the finish line on the first loop and turned in my chip and went to the med tent, and he wrapped up all my road rash and I went home. Very upset because my coach was right. It was dangerous and I hurt myself. So this was also 3 or 4 weeks before I was supposed to do the state championship time trial race on a Saturday, and then my marathon, the Denver Colfax Marathon, on a Sunday. So it was really up in the air if my body was going to be capable of doing all that weekend. But recovery healed quickly. I got back on my bike, was cycling good. Didn't really run very well leading into that marathon. And this was the cycling race that I podiumed. I came second in my age group at the state TT race. And third. I think I came third. But yes, that was a really fun experience. Expected to do well, didn't expect to be on the podium, so that was a nice little surprise. And then got home and tried to recover for the marathon, which I was testing out my new carbon shoes, which I had done one trial run with. I think I went 6 miles and noticed a few blisters, and I was like, oh, new shoes, like, I'll have some blisters. I started the marathon, and I want to say I was at like a 1:40 half marathon to start, which was way above where I thought I was going to be with the amount of training I had and where my running fitness was at. And then I made it 3 more miles, and there was some really steep hills, and my feet started hurting, and I was like, that's not great. But I trucked on, saw one of my friends. He asked me how everything was going. I was like, I can't feel my right leg. Like, everything hurts. Made it a couple more miles. I was walking, looked down at my shoes, and there was blood, pus, everything. My shoes were soaked. I think I had popped a blister and shoved it through the mesh of my shoes.
This is why I asked about the blisters at California.
We
'cause I
all
was
know
like, this
it.
is foreshadowing.
And this was with 10 miles left to run. So it was very much run as much as I can without physically not being able to run anymore, and then walk, and then pick it up and run, and then walk. And then I made it to mile 23, and there was another long climb, and I was like, all right, we're just going to go from here. Like, we're going to run as far as we can. So I made it to my mile 25, and I knew I wasn't going to make it to 26 and keep that pace. So I was like, all right, fine. We'll walk for about a minute. And then I did that last mile, and I think a sub 7, and just trucked through the pain because I knew the finish line was coming, and got to the finish line, and I stumbled to the fence at the edge just to like look myself over, like collect myself, and the medic there looked at my feet, and she's didn't even give me like any hesitation. She's like, come with me now. So I got to walk over there, and she carefully tried to take my shoes off. Luckily, everything was fine, besides the huge blisters that covered the whole inside of my feet. And she wrapped them up as best as she could, and then asked if everything else was okay. And I said, well, as good as it could be, I guess. And then there's no cell service at this point, because I texted my friend when I was walking before that last mile, and I was like, I'm going to need you at the finish line. Like, I'm going to need someone there to walk with me, because I don't think I can make it very far. But then I got to the finish line, and no signal, trying to figure out where he was. It was like thousands of people standing around. So I just went and sat next to a tree for about 20 minutes until we were able to get some sort of messages back and forth. But yeah, I think overall, besides the blisters, I was aiming for 3:20 on my marathon and I came out at 3:40. So really happy with the result given the day. So
Still a very fast marathon in the grand scheme of things.
Also,
I
he
will
finishes and goes, everything was fine except for these massive bloody blisters on your feet.
Skin squishing out of his shoe.
Right. Did you keep the shoes?
yes, I think I'm going, shocker to everybody who knows me, I'm going to try to wear socks and run in them still. So
Did you get the blood out?
no, they're still bloody and they show all the battle scars. So I think we're gonna leave it like that.
That's character.
It's
But-
just going to intimidate everyone around you. They're going to
Yeah.
see bloody shoes and you're going to be moving well.
So fast, they're gonna be like, "What is the trick to this?"
So this was good. Thanks, Logan, for being on 3 episodes in a row. Basically, we gave you no choice, which I do feel a little bit bad about. We were just like, Logan, you're on the podcast. And he was very, very amicable about that. He did not tell me to fuck right off. So, appreciate that. This has been so good to hear the whole story all the way through everything. And we will have to have you back as, your journey continues in this whole cycling thing. Because I'm assuming that go forward, you're going all in on that.
Yeah, I think at this point I'm gonna take at least a year off of triathlons and kind of focus on the cycling. I'd like to get into crit racing and road racing. I want to get into cyclocross and gravel as well. So those are up in the air. Some of my cycling teammates have told me that I would be really good at gravel racing because it's long distance endurance and you just go. So I think that's something in the future. And there's also some very, very long distance time trial-esque races in the US that intrigue me, but I think those are still a handful of years away before I attempt something across the country. So
what he's saying is he's doing Steamboat with us next year. That's what I heard.
I'm not doing Steamboat. I'll come be your sag. Your girl's not getting on a gravel bike.
She says that now. I totally get it,
We
though.
can do a
the
lot
going...
of convincing.
Yeah. I also am I totally get the wanting to go all in on one thing. So, because that block for me, despite the accident and everything that happened, into Unbound, to only have to concentrate on one thing, there's just a lot of confidence in whatever that got built through that, even with all the challenges and the ups and downs of training for Unbound, that I get it. I totally get what, going all in on that and enjoying that.
Do something. Go.
I think the one thing I really want to get into cycling because more into it because there's a bunch of different disciplines and each of them have their own nuances and skills and strategies that you need with them. And I think
And bikes.
Yes, can't forget that. But yeah, so I think that gives me a lot of skills I can learn and I can try to become better at. I think that gives me a lot of little goals rather than a few big goals a year. So
Don't worry, the dog's with us, guys. This comes out, you will have heard the Placid recap for this episode. So
Yeah, so we're not going to get into Lake Placid today.
no,
No Lake Placid stories in this episode because you already heard it last
you
week.
already heard it last week.
Maggie, anything to add before we close this one out?
I don't think so. It was fun hearing the recap of all of your races, Logan. I knew the races you had done. I didn't know all of the details. So this was a good time.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Subscribe, tell your friends. I can't wait to hear what Logan's mom has to say, seeing him 3 episodes in. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, email, Substack.
I think that's all
I
of
got
them.
them all that time. Yes. Leave a review. It helps with our algorithm.
Yep, if you could, tap the little follow or subscribe, whichever one that particular app gives you. Super helpful. Reviews, comments, all the things.
I think that's it. Maggie.
Okay, bye.